The Western Conference Finals have arrived. We have game one tonight in Las Vegas. And on today's episode, I talk with Tony Cordasco of Locked On Vegas Golden Knights to get you prepared for everything you need to know heading into this best of seven series for a trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. A loaded Friday episode coming up on today's Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Friday, May 19th. And we finally have some Dallas Stars hockey back in our lives after a few days off. The Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights going head-to-head during the Western Conference Finals beginning tonight. But I want to thank you for tuning in and making Locked On Stars your first listen every single day. Subscribe to the show if you're new and watching on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. Let me know in the comment section down below. For those of you watching on YouTube, do you think the Dallas Stars have a chance to win this series? How many games do you think it'll take? And who do you think will be the MVP for the Stars in this series? But let's not hesitate any longer and get into today's crossover episode with Tony from Locked On Vegas Golden Knights to get you set for game one and everything you need to know headed into this series.
Welcome to our crossover edition with myself, Tony Cordasco of Locked On Golden Knights, Dane Lewis of Locked On Stars. You could follow us at Locked On VGK here in Las Vegas, and all the Golden Knights fans at Locked On Stars. Myself, I am at Tony Dasco on Twitter. Chris Golick has the day off. He is at TD Chris G. Dane Lewis is Dane_Lewis, Lewis. And make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channels. Dane, it's been a minute. We have three parts to today's show. The first part will be the biggest storylines. In the second segment, we will talk about key players to watch on both sides, and then our predictions, which, of course, the VGK fans can't wait for mine. Dane, let's start off. What are some of the biggest storylines for the Dallas Stars from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I mean, even before I get into that, just likewise, I know it has been a while since we've, talked about our two teams. I think we maybe did one crossover in the regular season. So I'm excited that we're getting a rematch of a series in 2020 that I believe deserved, the full capacity crowds and the energy that comes with that. But we were obviously deprived of that with the pandemic and things of that nature. So it feels right that these two teams are getting to match up now with, full attendance crowds and all the good storylines. But the biggest storyline in my mind for the Dallas Stars headed into this series has to center around Jason Robertson, who was far and away the best offensive player for the Stars, at least in terms of goal scoring, 46 goals, the first Dallas Star ever to score over 100 points in a season. Mike Modano, as great as he was, never did that during his time here in Dallas. Jason Robertson did it, but he's been held in check here in the postseason in terms of goal scoring. Only 2 goals, both of them coming on the power play. He's picked up 10 assists, so still getting involved in the offense, but he didn't score a goal against the Seattle Kraken in round 2. And so we're kind of just at this point where we're waiting for him to get back on track. And it really just seems like he just needs to see one shot go in. And then, the pieces will finally start to come together for him. That's really been, the big missing piece for the Stars here in the playoffs, because everyone else has delivered on expectations. Roope Hintz, Jack Oettinger, for the most part, has been very, very good. But I mean, if the Stars truly want to compete for a Stanley Cup and be the final team standing of the 4 remaining in the NHL, they've got to get their superstar forward finally going offensively. So that's kind of where the big storyline pops up for me is the performance of Jason Robertson and how he's able to bounce back after a less than ideal series against Seattle. But I'm curious to hear on the Vegas side as well, because I know there's a lot of ways to approach this team, and a team that missed out on the playoffs last year, but now here they are on the doorstep of heading back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second time in their existence. So what would you say is the biggest story for the VGK heading into this series?
You know, it was a Siegfried and Roy disappearing act in the first series against Winnipeg for Riley Smith and for Jonathan Marchessault. Neither one of them scored a goal, and miraculously, VGK won that series against Winnipeg. And then in the last series, we had Riley Smith with a couple of goals and then 5 goals, including that natural hat trick for Jonathan Marchessault. So we know what you're talking about when a player just seems to disappear, and not at this time of year. You know, you want them to be very visible and be an important part of your offense. But my biggest storyline, I think, from here in Las Vegas, and the more that I talk to fans this week, is the return of Pete DeBoer. And how will this series shake out? This is going to be a very dramatic series, if you will. The Golden Knights also losing all 3 meetings against the Stars this past season. And DeBoer, it's something, I guess the storyline would have to be about familiarity, right? Because you have DeBoer, who knows all of his former players here in Vegas, minus, of course, the additions for this season. The Golden Knights, again, are a team that I feel the special teams are going to be real important. Pete DeBoer, actually, they didn't do very well here last year with Steve Spott, but Spott seems to be spot on currently with Dallas with 25 chances on the power play and 12 goals. I don't know how they turn that around. The Golden Knights in this situation too, again, the key will be the special teams, but also they have familiarity. John Stevens was an assistant coach in Dallas last year. You also have the assistant coach here, assistant coaches, I should say, in Ryan Craig. And you also have Misha Digskov, 2 of those coaches that are familiar with the Pete DeBoer system. So it's just going to be, I say, it'll be a situation where whatever coach flinches first or side flinches first, I think the other side will have a decisive advantage. And then goaltending. Talk about Jake Oettinger. We'll talk more about each player, but you have one solid goaltender. I don't know what that means, because this will be on the season the 4th time that these teams meet, and Adin Hill will be the 4th goaltender that your Dallas Stars are going to face. It's just been crazy with the goalie carousel here, and I still have a lot of questions about VGK. But Oettinger just seemed to be up and down in that last series. Where's he at? And is he going to be the type of player that we know can dominate a series?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Jake Oettinger seems to be in a really good spot now. You mentioned it. It was a very up and down series against Seattle. He gets pulled twice in Game 3 and in Game 6. An opportunity for the Stars to clinch that series in Seattle at Climate Pledge Arena, but they're unable to do so. Jake Oettinger gets pulled, and then he comes out in Game 7. Really should have pitched the shutout, but Seattle gets a cheeky little goal with about 17 seconds left in the 3rd period. So, you know, make of that what you will. But he seems to be in a good state of mind. And really, you know, Stars fans know this good and well. You watch Jake Oettinger play, and he's one of the most mentally tough players you'll ever watch in this league. Hardly ever does he lose back-to-back games. The Stars actually haven't lost back-to-back games here in the postseason. Normally after a loss, they'll come out and deliver, you know, an excellent performance. And that's really been the case all postseason long. You saw Game 3, the Stars lose. It was 6-2 or 7-2. They come out and win Game 4. Same thing with Game 6 and 7. Bad loss in Game 6, great win in Game 7. And even in the Minnesota series, that happened a few times. So, it's a mixture of Jake Oettinger has shown that he's a good playoff goalie. He did it last year against Calgary. He's done it this year more often than not, but at the same time, he's still a relatively young kid finding his way here in the NHL. So you can't expect it to be perfection every time he's out there on the ice, especially here in the playoffs where you're facing the best of the best. And the series are going to get continually more challenging. And I expect that to be the case here against Vegas. I don't expect it to be an easier time for Jake Oettinger in terms of the offense he has to face. So I'm curious to see how he and goalie coach Jeff Reese look to, you know, plan for this attack that has guys like Jack Eichel, who I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But even if it's not Eichel, it's Mark Stone, Marchessault, you mentioned with the hat trick and that clinching Game 6. So Jake Ottinger's going to have his hands full, but I think all of this time off, I mean, the Stars haven't played since Monday, so they've had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to get prepared for this game. And I think here in game one, he's going to look really sharp. And he actually, you mentioned the 3-0 record for the Stars in the regular season. Jake Oettinger, a huge part for that. And I think this extended into last year as well. Jake Ottinger's numbers versus the Golden Knights is 4-0 with the 4 wins, no losses, a .960 save percentage, and a 1.18 goals against average. I don't expect those numbers to stand in a best of 7 series, but historically, he's very good against the VGK. Not really sure what it is. I guess players just kind of have those tendencies where, they find 1 or 2 opponents and they just tend to play great against those teams. So I know he's excited for this series, and I know Stars fans watching are going to be excited to see how he performs here in the conference finals.
Coming up next, we've got key players to watch on our crossover edition, Locked On Golden Knights and Locked On Dallas Stars. Don't go away. Back with more right after this. For a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is a perfect fit. It has to be the same when it comes to your vehicle because every part really needs to fit just right. So the next time that you need parts and accessories, just head over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure that every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and then look for the green check to know that the part will fit or you get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be making sure that you'll be back in the game in no time at all. And after all, really, it is easy to bring home a win when you have the right parts, when they're all guaranteed and all of that, the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices. Go over to ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only, and exclusions apply. Welcome back to our crossover edition. Tony Cordasco and Dane Lewis come to you from Las Vegas. Dane, of course, in Dallas. Were you at Game 7? Were you there?
I was at Game 7.
I think I saw some really good photos there. That's always exciting. As a fan, though, it's not fun for fans of a team in Game 7. And Pete DeBoer 7-0 in Game 7s, which is really ridiculous. You could find us on Twitter at Tony Dasco, at Locked On VGK. Also, of course, the co-host at TD Chris G. That's Chris Golick. And, of course, our guest today on the crossover is Dane Lewis, Dane_Lewis, Lewis, Locked On Stars. And we issued a little bit of a challenge for you folks today. We're neck and neck in the Twitter sphere, and we're trying to get more followers. So follow both of us here, and we're going to try to win by Game 7. Let's take a look at the it's going to go deep. I have a feeling.
It is. I'm right there with you.
Let's first take a look at some of the players to watch, and look no further than the 2 Conn Smythe candidates currently. You've got Jack Eichel of the VGK and Roope Hintz of the Stars. Hintz with 19 points. Jackie Aces, as Pat McAfee likes to refer to him, currently with 14 points, I should say. Let's start there with that matchup. I think it's the marquee matchup, and it's good to see that Jack Eichel is in the limelight again. It really is, and the first time for him in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the game is better when superstars like Jack Eichel are performing well and performing in the postseason. I think Roope Hintz fits that billing as well. Both of those guys playing excellent right now. I mean, that is the matchup to watch. Both of them playing that centerman role. They're in the faceoff dots. They're scoring goals. They're getting assists. I mean, you really can't go wrong with either player. And I know, this is kind of what people were expecting from Eichel, I'm sure. And you can probably, dive more into the season that he's had. But even in Buffalo, we knew he had this potential, but now he's with a team that, I think properly suits him and his style of play. And he's taken advantage of his, opportunity and running full speed with it. Whereas Roope Hintz, who's been around a little bit longer, he was a part of that Dallas Stars team that went to the Stanley Cup back in 2020. He's also embracing the moment with, 9 goals so far through 13 games played. He scored the first goal of Game 7 on Monday night, really got the crowd back into the game. It's kind of a not dull environment because it's Game 7, but it was 0-0 through nearly 2 periods. And so Roope Hintz has carried the team offensively at times, but that's what you expect from a guy like him, who actually in the middle of the season signed a new contract, 8 years, $8 million. And so that's going to kick in next year. And so you have to imagine that Stars fans are pretty excited to, see what the future holds for one of the young stars who's going to be the centerpiece of this team for a while. And I have to imagine that's how Vegas fans feel about Jack Eichel too.
Yeah, they really do. Big series, the last series. And I think, for Eichel, he wanted to prove himself in his first playoffs here, and especially going up against Connor McDavid. McDavid, the top draft pick in 2015. Eichel was the number 2 guy, and he wanted to not be treated as the number 2 guy. And it goes back to last summer on Cape Cod after Bruce Cassidy was hired, and he got together with Jack Eichel. And he wanted Eichel, he challenged him to become a more complete player. And so the Jack Eichel you see today is a much better player, especially on the defensive end. I think I told you, Dane, when we first did our crossover back in the fall, I felt as though Eichel was about to bust out, but defensively, and every night he is the best player on the ice, bar none for the VGK. But again, his just contributions on the defensive side, I think, has really made his game more complete. Here's a stat for you. In 5 versus 5 in that Edmonton series, VGK outscored the Oilers 10-1. So that's a +9 in 5 versus 5. So that was really outstanding. Another player I'll look at is Mark Stone, the captain. He's fitting in nicely on the third line with Chandler Stevenson and Brett Howden. I think we have to keep an eye on him. I want to know more about Evgeny Dodonov, and the fans do as well here, because he's starting to play really well. Hey, the guy played very well in Vegas, and a lot of the fans did not want to see him leave, but a nice late acquisition by the Stars and Pete DeBoer.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those trades, and right before the deadline, that was kind of it hopefully works out for both players that need a change of scenery. The Stars send Denis Gurianov to Montreal in exchange for Dodonov, and Dodonov's been a very underrated piece for the Stars in the regular season as they closed out the year, but even here in the playoffs with 9 points and 13 games. And if you go back and watch any of Game 7, you'll see that there was a very heavy forecheck from the Stars. And a lot of times, if Dodonov was on the ice, he was the one setting the standard and setting the tone in that regard. Just a guy who plays hard every single time he's out there on the ice. He fits in very well on his line with Jamie Benn and Wyatt Johnston. So you kind of have this mix of, the veteran guys like Dodonov and Benn that have, been around the league for a while. And then Wyatt Johnston, who's only 20 years old and still, discovering himself here in the league. I mean, it's his first year, but, it's a nice mix of veteran presence, but also some young youthfulness with a little bit of speed and aggression there. So yeah, Dodonov's been an excellent pickup, and it's at the point now where Stars fans are kind of clamoring for the Stars to look to re-sign him where he comes back next year, because he feels more like a guy that can stick around for 2 or 3 more seasons, rather than just we're going to add you now, hope to win the cup, and then part ways. I mean, it seems like Dodonov could add value over the next few seasons, as he's kind of in that middle stage of his career, maybe starting to get closer to the end of it, but still plenty left in the tank. With the way that he's performed here in these playoffs. And I have to imagine he's with Pete DeBoer mentally, just in terms of the motivation to perform in this series. And I'm sure everyone wants to win, but I mean, those two, especially given who the opponent is, I can imagine that the desire to win is pretty high.
Jonathan Marchessault, we talked about him in the opening against Joe Pavelski. Oh my goodness, is that going to be a matchup? If these players do match up, there's some incredible matchups here across the board. William Karlsson will go against Domi there in that matchup. We might see a forgotten name here. I don't know how much the Dallas Stars fans keep up with the Golden Knights, but Phil Kessel did not draw in the last series, just not fast enough. I think this might be more of a series, Dane, that he could fit in with the Golden Knights as well. But there's so much star power, I think, because both teams roll the 4 lines, good defensively. The structures are there. Pete DeBoer he's not going to change much of who he is. He's going to try to force the Golden Knights to take their shots on the perimeter. That's a given. And then, of course, we need to keep the crease clean and all of that on both sides of the ice. But I just think that this is a series that the players match up very well. Who else should we look out for from the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, you mentioned Joe Pavelski. He's a guy that clearly needs to be on people's radar. Been one of the most consistent players in the league for a long time. But I'll go ahead and throw out Miro Heiskanen as well, who I don't think we talked about yet. But only 9 points in 13 games. But his impact goes beyond the stat sheet. I mean, he plays over 30 minutes a night here in the playoffs, which for people doing math at home, I mean, a hockey game is 60 minutes and his time on ice is sitting around 32, 33 minutes a night. So yeah, absolutely insane. Like you said, and in the last series was doing it with stitches on his face. He takes a puck to the face in game 3 against the Seattle Kraken. So he might still have the fishbowl mask on his face for this series as well. Not sure what the healing process is like for that, but I mean, that was affecting the way that he was able to eat and sleep. So I have to imagine it's pretty painful, yet he's still out there playing 30 plus minutes a night and just incredible defense. That I mean, I feel like this is finally the stage of time in the NHL where the community and everyone who watches the league finally will say, hey, this Heiskanen guy belongs in the same category as Cale Makar, Adam Fox, and the elite defensemen. Stars fans have known for a while, but I just feel like, Heiskanen, who doesn't always score a ton of goals or always do a ton offensively, although he has opened up his game quite a bit under Pete DeBoer and with the departure of John Klingberg, I think he's finally starting to get that recognition, especially here in the postseason. And I think he, you talk about matchups, I imagine that he's going to be doing everything he can to try to stop Jack Eichel or whoever the big threat offensively is out on the ice whenever Heiskanen's out there. So, I mean, he was able to do it against Kirill Kaprizov in round 1, and Seattle doesn't really have that one superstar player, but there were several times that a goal was taken away or a high danger scoring chance was taken away because of Miro Heiskanen's skating ability, the ability that he uses with his stick. If you could build the defenseman in the lab, I'm obviously biased in saying it, but I mean, it's Miro Heiskanen, just the way he's built, the way he plays, and of course, just the warrior mentality as well.
Coming up next, we will have some keys to this big matchup, the Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars, and our predictions. We will have predictions yet. We're going to get called to make a prediction. PGK fans might like me, some might like me, some might not. We'll explain right after this. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights and Locked On Stars, the crossover edition for the WCF. Wow, it's amazing that we're here already and we're down to the final 4 teams. Never would have thunk it earlier in the season when we spoke. Tony Cordasco here, Dane Lewis of the Locked On Stars podcast, and let's break down some of the keys to the game. And for me, first of all, Dane, I want to see if this game's going to be physical. If this series will become a physical series, will one team try to set the tone in game 1? VGK, for all of this veteran leadership they have, they unraveled at times against the Oilers. Alex Pietrangelo, that awful slashing penalty against Leon Draisaitl. Keegan Colasar, with VGK leading in a game, gets the 5-minute major and the boarding penalty. Jack Eichel even became unraveled in the last series. So will the Dallas Stars try to make this a physical series? What do you see out of your team? Because the Golden Knights would like to be more skilled and more finesse. Bruce Cassidy, I think, is going to get some guys that can rough it up in the off season if he has it his way. But I'm not sold on whether or not VGK can win those games or a series where there's a lot of roughhousing.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think the Stars are kind of in the same boat. I don't have the stat pulled up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure Dallas is near the bottom, if not dead last, in hits in the postseason so far. They're a physical team in the sense that they're not, I don't think they're afraid of contact. They have guys that can, throw their weight around. Jamie Benn, of course, is never afraid to drop the gloves or lay a big hit. And even, Miro Heiskanen, he can lay a hit. Esa Lindell, they have guys that can hit, but it's not really their style. I think that they're kind of more where you say the VGK come from, the skill, the finesse. I mean, you look at Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson, Tyler Seguin. I mean, that's their game. It's not really the grit and grind kind of game that you would see Winnipeg or Minnesota play. I think that that style is more fitted to those teams, especially, Winnipeg under Rick Bowness. That's Rick Bowness hockey right there. And then Minnesota, Ryan Reeves, Matt Dumba, guys like that are going to break you down. And the Stars were able to overcome that, and the VGK obviously able to overcome Winnipeg in round one. So I'm sure, I mean, it's the playoffs and it's the Western Conference Finals, so there's bound to be some big hits here and there, but I don't necessarily see the Stars looking to take over a game or take over the series in that way. I think they're going to try to still play to their style, which is, when the puck battles along the boards, be physical there, but, navigate the neutral zone well, get those clean zone exits defensively, and then, get those opportunities on offense, whether it's on the rush or if you're able to get set up and, run a play that has Miro Heiskanen at the top and, Joe Pavelski down low. That's where he's made his living, with those tip in shots. And there's plenty of other guys on the team that can do that too. So with it being the playoffs, we can expect some physicality, but I don't see the Stars looking to, set the tone in that regard. I think they're going to try to set the tone in other aspects of the game.
Okay. We just remember back early in the series against the Oilers, Jay Woodcroft, not a very good coach anyway, but cross-checking repeatedly the back of Mark Stone. They got away with it a lot in games 1 and 2, and then kind of settled in a little bit. And then they targeted Pietrangelo. We remember Evander Kane getting that cross-check to his the face of Pietrangelo that got him going in the wrong direction, I guess, and they lost their poise. But you don't see any of those shenanigans where they target one specific player and try to take them out of the game?
No, I don't think so. Unless someone just has an uncharacteristic moment. The Stars, and again, Vegas fans are probably listening like, oh, of course he's saying this, but I think Stars fans would agree, and anyone else who watches this team would agree that the Stars just don't have a villain type player. Max Domi kind of fits that billing, but he's not a big guy. He's more of just a scrappy player that you hate to play against. I mean, they have guys that can get under your skin, but I don't anticipate a dirty hit. I know we've kind of seen those spread out. You had the Pietrangelo incident, but even in other series, Colorado, Seattle, Cale Makar, that was a very uncharacteristic hit that he had. There was even Matt Dumba against Joe Pavelski in that first round series that the Stars played. Maybe not a dirty hit by, the rule book, but I mean, it gave Pavelski a concussion. He missed the entirety of the first round. I don't anticipate the Stars looking to do anything like that again. And if it does happen, I would claim it to be uncharacteristic of anyone on this roster. And I also just don't think that's how Pete DeBoer has this team wanting to play. So yeah, I don't anticipate that, but again, I mean, it is the playoffs and stranger things have happened, and we really, can't expect the unexpected, I guess, in some ways, but I don't see the Stars looking to headhunt or anything like that.
Okay. But DeBoer does know those tendencies with the Golden Knights players, yes, where he can get under their skin.
Oh yeah.
X factors in this series. I'll start with Ivan Barbashev on the top line, a trade deadline acquisition for the VGK. Really has been setting the table really good with the forecheck, that top line of Eichel and Marchessault, and he's the heavy on that line. And I just say, watch out for him, because at times, I mean, he makes some great passes. He's a heady player. He won't make a ton of mistakes, and that's going to be my X factor in this series. How about you, Dane?
I think I'll go back to a guy I touched on just a second ago, but Wyatt Johnston, the 20-year-old rookie, has scored both the series clinching goals in both the first rounds. And if Vegas fans out there haven't seen his game-winning goal from Game 7 against Seattle, I would encourage you to go find it. I mean, it is an unbelievable play that he made to, one, negate icing as the puck was traveling down the ice, but then just a slick backhand shot over Philip Grubauer to put the Stars up 2-0 at the time. I mean, it just incredible poise from him and just not cracking under the pressure, which, I mean, if a 19, 20-year-old kid, if he didn't perform in the playoffs, I think people would understand, because he's a young kid and, still has a lot to learn about the league. But here he is, 13 games in with 4 goals, and he's performed very well. So I expect him to continue to elevate his game and find a way to pitch in with a few clutch goals for this team. And I feel like he can get overlooked on a scouting report when you look at the Dallas Stars roster, because of all the star power with Ben, Sagan, Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski. And then, somewhere in that mix is a 20-year-old kid who is well on his way to being a superstar in the league.
Oh, there's no doubt. That shot, he won me over in just one shot and in one play, really. And just having the headiness and the wherewithal to hit Grubauer in the shoulder and just to go up top, obviously top shelf there, but very smart and on the move. And with the backhand, I was like, okay, this is one skilled player. VGK, I think for the Golden Knights, they need to get out to an early lead. in all but one game in the Edmonton series. They had the first goal. They gave up the first goal, I should say, to the opponent. This has been about the response for the Golden Knights. If Dallas does score early, the Golden Knights have been coming back quickly. We saw there where the Golden Knights had 3 goals in 89 seconds. They can score in bunches, in one game that past series. I think Pete DeBoer likes to always stress, Dane, the first team to 3 has a really good advantage. If you could score 3 goals, I think that number might be, a lot of folks expect a low scoring series. I think at times we're going to see wide open skating, not as open as the Edmonton series for VGK fans, but VGK is 48-1 in games in which they have scored 4 or more goals. So that is a big stat. Golden Knights have played very well. Second periods, they had a lot of issues early in the season. Now they're outscoring opponents. And then they did a terrific job in 5 versus 5 in the last series against the Oilers. Any stats that stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Stars have been right there with the best in the league in terms of special teams on both sides. And in terms of scoring first, I think all but one game in the Seattle series, the team that scored first won the game. The only one of those being the exception, game 1, Dallas scores first. Seattle ends up winning that game at overtime. But other than that, I think the first goal scorer won the game. And I think that was the case for most of the series against Minnesota as well. So getting off to a hot start, obviously important to the Dallas Stars. And I think, you talk about Vegas's incredible record when they score 4 or more. The Stars are definitely going to need to keep that in mind, because if the Stars are allowing 4 goals, that means Jake Oettinger's not on his game. So I can't say flat out that it won't happen at all. It probably will happen at least once or twice, but the Stars have to find a way to nip that in the bud. If Vegas scores first or they get on the board early before the Stars, it's all about how you respond to those and, getting your confidence back for Jake Oettinger and getting the defense kind of regrouped and refocused. Otherwise, they could find themselves trailing, not just in an individual game, but they could find themselves down 2-0 early in the series or down 2-1 at some point in the series. So that's going to be important, is how you start the games, who scores first. And then special teams are going to be important for the Stars. The penalty kill has been top 5 all season in the regular season. And that's, I believe, carried over here into the playoffs as well. And then even the power play, top 5 or top 10 most of the regular season, sitting at 5 right now at 31.7%. The penalty kill sitting at 3rd. So special teams, a big part of what the Stars do. And especially with Jason Robertson, you'd like to see him score a little bit more 5-on-5 with his 2 goals coming on the power play, but if that's how he's going to score his goals, so be it. So if the Vegas Golden Knights don't play disciplined, they could find themselves, at the receiving end of a lot of Stars power play opportunities. And I know that's really the only way Edmonton was able to execute a lot of their offense. Edmonton really struggled at the 5-on-5 game. So
7 power play goals, but Winnipeg also scored 5. So that's 12 goals that they've given up on the man advantage. And in this series, it's time for our predictions. And I will say one thing about the Golden Knights. I think that they ended the first 2 series here at the right time. The Winnipeg series, 5 games, Winnipeg was trying to muck it up a little bit, and it became very physical. And if it went that one more game, it might have taken a toll on the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights, Edmonton, if it goes to a game 7, no telling what could happen there between those 2 teams there. And the Golden Knights win that series, wrap it up in game 6. And again, physical and dirty play and everything going on and shenanigans aplenty. My prediction for this series, Golden Knights fans, love me and hate me. I'll explain, Dane. I am going to say Dallas will win this series in 6. I'm going to say Dallas in 6. And if it goes 7, folks, you can't beat Petey DeBoer. You cannot beat him. He's undefeated in game 7. I'm going to go Dallas in 6. The fans, a lot of them, most of them will like me because I'm not good at this prediction game. And they say, that's good. I'm glad that you did that. And you picked Dallas because then VGK will win. But then other fans might be upset because I picked the Dallas Stars. But that's the way I see this series going. And I think it goes at least 6.
Yeah, I agree. I'm back and forth on, 6 or 7 games. I don't think no one's getting swept. No one's losing, no one's winning in 5. But I'll stick to what I've done all postseason long and continue to ride with the Stars. I also think Stars in 6 makes a lot of sense. I won't be shocked if it goes to 7. there is comfort in knowing Pete DeBoer is undefeated in Game 7s, but also a winner take all at the Fortress. As good as the Stars have been on the road this season, doesn't excite me, but I think at the end of the day, as good as Adin Hill has been stepping in, Jake on his game, Jake Oettinger, in my mind, makes all the difference, and I think that he's going to do enough to get the Stars a trip to the Stanley Cup Finals yet again. I expect it to be a back and forth series where at times it's hard to tell who's going to take the advantage, but I mean, I've been excited for every series they've gone into, but especially this one. Vegas still so, I say so new. I mean, they've been in the league for what, over 5 years now, 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. So I mean, they're still. They've been in the playoffs all but 1 year, and I know that they've been to the Cup final before. So I know that they want to get back there. The fans want to get back there, but the Dallas Stars also were there recently. But I feel like the fans didn't get to experience it to the extent that they would have liked to, again, with COVID restrictions and all that. So it's exciting for both these teams, both fan bases. But I'll go ahead and I'll go right there with you. Stars in 6. Although I can respect the reverse psychology game that you have going, where some fans, I'm sure in Vegas, are excited and like you said, some of them probably confused. But whatever works. I can't judge.
I had to wear a William Karlsson jersey because he scored a goal. I had the over/under at a half a goal in the last series. And with 36.6 seconds to go, he scores an empty netter. And so the bet was that I would wear a Karlsson jersey that I last used to change the oil, in the car with. So I don't want to make any more foolish bets with fans or otherwise. I'm just going to stick right down the middle. Coming up for us here at Locked On Golden Knights, of course, Friday night's games at 5:30. Yeah, way to go. Let's have this game start on a Friday of EDC weekend where there's 400,000 people here for the Electric Daisy Carnival. That's really great scheduling. But we will have a Saturday edition, and that'll come out late Saturday morning. Anything special you have planned there, Dane?
Yeah, I imagine that Locked On Stars will have something put out either late Friday night or early Saturday morning, because I know 5:30 start time sounds great, but that's 8:30 here in Texas. So it's going to be a late night for Stars fans, but at least it is a Friday night. So I can't imagine a lot of people have many places to be the next day, but we'll have something out, win or lose, talking about the game and kind of breaking down what we see in Game 1. So Stars fans can be on the lookout for that.
We appreciate everyone tuning in, especially our everydayers. We appreciate folks that make us your first listen each and every day. And for Dane Lewis, again, you could find Dane on Twitter at Dane_Lewis, and you could find him at Locked On Stars. For us, it is at Locked On VGK on Twitter, at Tony Cordasco, at TD Chris G, the co-host who gets, he's gotten the Dallas fans pretty fired up, I guess, with some of the stuff he said already, and he's got a really fun Twitter game. And then, of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Let's have a great series. Dane Lewis, thanks again for joining us. It's been a fun crossover. Should be a great series.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tony. Looking forward to it.